Property tax. What is property tax? Well, in this unit, we will discuss that, and we will find the assessed value. We will also calculate property tax, and then we will end this discussion with how do you determine the property tax rate. Firstly, property tax, what is it? Property tax, it is a tax. It is money that you must pay for owning property in a specific area. Every township, city, local municipality where there is property will charge property taxes, with maybe a few exceptions where they don't have a property tax. But I believe all municipalities in America charges property taxes because property taxes are collected by the governments in order to help pay for certain services in that community. For example, your local public school system, the teachers and the school and all of those expenses to run those schools are covered by the property taxes that are paid by owners of the property who lives in those communities. Also, for police, for road departments, and for fire departments, these major areas of services are generally covered by the monies received by the governments that they collect from property owners through this imposed property tax. So property taxes are used by the governments to help support those communities. If you rent property in an area, you are excluded from property taxes. A property tax is only assessed or only imposed on owners of property, not renters of property. So, how then do we find the assessed value? And what is an assessed value? What is market value? If you had a house and you wanted to sell that house, then that expected selling price of that property, the house and the property, because when you sell a house, obviously you're selling the property, the land on it. That is called market value, the value that you sell it for, the market. You take it and you sell it on the market and somebody comes and buy it for a price. The selling price is the market value. Well then, how does that differ from an assessed value? An assessed value is a specified percent of the estimated market value of the property. So the selling price times a specified rate. So every city, township, or municipality will specify a rate that they will impose and apply that to the assessed value. We'll talk about that later when we talk about calculating property tax. But just know an assessed value is an assessed value. Let me say that again. An assessed value is a specified percent of the estimated selling price, or the expected selling price, which we call the market value. So how then do we find this assessed value? Okay. Assessed value is simply found by first determining what is the assessment rate, convert that to a decimal value, and then multiply that times whatever the market value is. So if you know that you're selling your house for $100,000, or the selling price of your house is $100,000, and the municipality has an assessed rate of 4%, then the assessed value would be the 4% of 100,000. So that's how you do it. It's a very simple calculation. Once you know the assessed rate, then you will be able to easily find the assessed value by multiplying that rate times the expected selling price or your market value of the property. Example 1. In this example, we get to see that there is a property that is assessed with has a market value of $175,000. It is given to have an assessed market value rate of 25% in this case. Okay, so how do we find the assessed value? Well, you take the market value times the assessed value, and you end up with $43,750. So in this case, the assessed value is $43,750. Now you might be wondering, what is the point? What is the assessed value used for? Well, the assessed value, it is used to calculate property tax. And we'll discuss that in the next unit. But until then, look over these stop and check problems, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Check your answers at the back of the book and make sure you're on the right path before going forward to the next part. Okay, let us discuss how do you calculate property tax. Property tax, as we said, it is a tax that is levied on the assessed value of property, and only those people, companies, organizations, entities that own property are charged this property tax. Property tax is a price for owning property. Yes, and we discussed already that companies pay taxes, individuals pay taxes. If you own property, you pay these taxes, and those taxes are used by the municipalities or governments to pay for government services, and that is why it's important. But in this case here, the rate is determined by the municipality, and once they determine it, they express it in several different ways. And in that expression, sometimes they may use the term mill. A mill, M-I-L-L, a mill, in this case, by definition, it is equal to 1/1000th of a dollar. That 1/1000th of a dollar, it is 1/1000, or 1/10 of 1 cent, 0.001. So let's look forward now to see how do we calculate property tax. Now I want you to know that there are several ways that this is expressed. 4 general ways that you would see property taxes assessed or expressed. In one case, you will see it is expressed as tax per $1. Okay, in which case that given tax rate is applied directly against the assessed value. The second way, it may be expressed as a tax per $100 of assessed value. If that is the way it is being expressed, then you simply calculate it by taking that tax on $100 and dividing it by $100. That will end up being the tax per $1. Notice now, all of these different ways the tax is being expressed, they all equal the same thing, tax per $1. It is just a different way to express it. And we know that from general mathematics, many ways to express a single value. Okay, and you look in these situations now, doesn't matter, but whatever way the government or municipality express their taxes, we know we simply take the tax on that expressed amount and divide it by that expressed amount. That's how we get the tax per $1. So we can multiply times our assessed value times that. So this is what we're doing. You're going to take the assessed value and multiply it times that price per, that tax per $1. Let's look at an example to see how this works. Because the property tax will simply be, as we just said, the assessed value times whatever that property tax rate per $1. That's important. It may be expressed in many ways, but the calculation for property tax is property tax rate per dollar. So these given expressions here are all reduced to the tax per $1. Make sure we understand that. Okay. In our example here, we have a property. The property has been assessed at $90,000. And it is going to be expressed in 4 different ways, as we already saw. Okay? Let's take a quick look at all of these individual calculations. If we look at all 4 of these, one thing you'll notice, as I was telling you earlier, is that these calculations, they all end up being the same because we're reducing it to the tax on $1 and then multiplying that times the assessed value. So does it matter how it's being expressed? If it's being expressed, you see the different ways it's being expressed. Once we divide it by whatever we need to divide it by, in this case $100, because it's a tax per $100 expressed that way. If it's expressed as tax on $1,000, we do this, and it gives us the same rate. In this case, 11.8%. That rate was given to us up in this example. The first expression was this set 11.8% of assessed value. That is what the municipality determined. And so we all end up with the same calculation, no matter how it is expressed. Just make sure you pay attention to the way it is expressed so that you will set up your initial formula correctly. Okay? Okay. Either way, property tax will be the same no matter what way it's expressed. So that's what's important to know. Take a look at Stop and Check just to make sure you're on track. Check your answers with the answers in the back of the book before proceeding to this next section. Okay, this is the last section for this unit of the first part of the chapter, and we're going to discuss how to determine the property tax rate. It's very interesting. Now, we get to see this from the perspective of the government or the municipality that needs to generate income in order to run its municipality. That's right. We've already discussed that the property tax is used to pay your teachers and your schools, your firemen, your police department, and your road departments. There's other things that money goes to, but primarily, when you're living in a community, you have police, you have fire, you have road people who keep the road in condition correctly. If it snows, they're plowing the roads. If the potholes, they're maintaining the roads. And so all of these particular services are covered by the taxes. Now, the tax is imposed on the assessed value, as we saw earlier. Each property owner has a bill that they get. But before they get the bill, the municipality must determine how much money it needs as a total budget for the year to run its municipality, all the things that it needs to run that municipality, all the money that it needs to run that municipality, it first finds that amount. And then it totals up the assessed value of all the property in that municipality. And it takes those two numbers to determine how much tax you're going to be charged, or how much tax they should charge every individual property owner in order to raise that total amount of money that they already know that they need. Okay? So that is what they do. Now, it is always rounded up. Whenever you calculate this tax, it's important you look at this here. Whenever you calculate the tax rate, if the division does not come out even, you round the digit in the hundredth position up to the next digit. Look at this example down in here. This number came out to 0.15. We rounded up to the next hundredths, the second decimal. So you round it up to the two decimal places. They don't charge you all of these extra, percentages of the 1 penny. No, they'll round it up. Okay? Make sure you know that. So when you're doing calculations, always round it up to the nearest penny unless otherwise expressed. So let's move forward down to see how we're going to make this calculation. How do we determine property tax? Now, once again, the municipality may express their property tax on different ways, as we saw the 4 different ways, no problem. If they do that, then these are the formulas that they use, depending on how they express it. If the tax is expressed as per $1 of assessed value, then they'll simply take the total budget that they need for that year and divide that by the total assessed property value that they have, and whatever rate they get, that is the rate that they will charge all the property owners on the assessed value of their property for the property tax for that year. If the tax is expressed as tax per $100 of assessed value, then they'll do the same thing, but then they will take that rate and multiply it times $100, and then they'll give you a bill that says, for every $100 of the value of your property, this is the tax rate. So it's important to know the way they express it. It is no big difference. We found out already the bottom line is exactly the same. So they just express it in whatever way they want for their reasons. Sometimes they'll make it look bigger or smaller. It's a psychological thing, but we know now it's all the same thing. You just make it look different by expressing it in a different way. Let's not get too caught up in the way it's expressed. We're looking at the same thing at the bottom line. Okay, let's look at the example. In example 3, we're asked to find the tax rate expressed as tax per $100 of assessed value. Per $100 of assessed value. Very important. Okay. And this is the case. The township, Harbor Town, they expect that they're going to need $95 million, $95 million. And then they have total property assessed at $3.868 billion. Because they're expressing it as tax per $100, they first divide their budget amount by the total of assessed property. That rate that they get, they multiply it times 100. The rate that they get, they multiply by 100. They take that rate because it wasn't rounded off evenly. They round it up to the next cent. Notice in this case here, it is not a perfect rounding because it did not round evenly. The 2.4708 becomes 2.48. The only way this would have stayed 2.47 is if this number was 2.4700000000. Any number beyond the second digit place will cause this value to be rounded up. Please pay attention to that. That is a trick question on a test. You can lose points by not paying attention to this small little detail, okay? So there you go. The tax rate is $2.48 per $100 of assessed value. That is how we found the property tax and the tax rate. Okay. You can take a look at the second example, if you will, and this is good to look at. It's a different situation, but then they'll tell you how to go about breaking that problem down. So if this is a little bit difficult, the first example, then take a look at this example and follow it all the way through so that you can understand what this country and its states and municipalities are doing in setting their property tax rates. It's important to know that. But once you know that, it's excellent because now you understand what it's for. Now, before we end this chapter discussion here, it's important to know that if you are living in America and you pay property taxes, then you essentially are a co-boss to the police, fire, road department, and the schools, the teachers. The teachers are your employees. So you have a voice that needs to be heard, and you can express your opinion to all of these different people because you are paying for their salaries. Isn't that nice to know? So if you're not satisfied with the services in your municipality, you have a voice that you can complain, and they must hear you because they're receiving your tax to pay for those services. That's a nice little sideline. We'll just end this discussion on that. So now go ahead and look at these last stop and check exercises before going on to the section exercises where I would ask you to do all of these exercises again. With your calculator, you should be able to get through these 22 problems relatively quickly. So go ahead and write those down and send them in. And we will end this discussion there. And next time we will begin our discussion with the last part of this chapter, discussing income taxes. See you then.